High. Exterior chrome finish is unstable, the grille suffers most quickly. Bad sign, condensation in the headlights. Firstly, because in large quantities it threatens to spoil the electronics. And secondly, it often becomes the result of cracks in the body near the headlight mounts, especially often such cracks appear in winter. The hood and tailgate are made of durable aluminum and other steel featherings, high quality and soundly galvanized. The paint does not adhere well in places, and after even minimal damage it can peel off in pieces, primarily on the sandblasted flanging of the wheel arches. Not isolated failures of the rear view camera. 2.0 TFSI, the 2.0 turbo engine of the EA888 family, the most common on the Audi Q5, raises the most questions, especially on pre-styling copies older than 2012. Piston rings can lie in just 60,000 km, which results not only in increased oil consumption, but also burnouts of pistons and damage to cylinders. The membrane in the PCV valve of the crankcase ventilation system is unreliable, and the rear crankshaft oil seal cannot withstand high pressure. Oil in the intake tract greatly accelerates the overgrowth of intake valves with deposits. Consequences up to misfires, check engine signal, and damaged seats. For prevention, at least every 40,000 kilometers, it is necessary not only to flush the nozzles, but also to clean the valve. In addition, the EA888 motor has an unsuccessful timing chain drive. After 150 to 180,000 km, the chain can stretch up to a brake. But even earlier, after 70 to 90,000 km, there is a risk of a chain jump when starting the engine. An inexpensive hydraulic tensioner can cause valves to bend and damage the cylinder head. By the way, you can monitor the approach of troubles by control risks on the tensioner. They can be seen through a special hole in the front of the engine. After restyling, the severity of the problems decreased. The piston group, chain, tensioner, PCV valve, and crankshaft oil seal were finalized. The variable displacement oil pump gradually loses this capacity. In order not to risk the appearance of scoring on the crankshaft in the first place, after 140,000 km, it is better to replace the module with a new one prophylactically. And the water pump and thermostat module in a common plastic case for pre-styling specimens can leak after 100 to 120,000 km, changed to modernized after 140 to 160,000. After 70, 90,000 km, individual ignition coils often fail, and in the intake manifold, the landing sights of the damper axes sometimes wear out to such an extent that they wedge 3.0 TFSI. Gasoline V-shaped 3.0 TFSI was installed on the Audi Q5 after restyling. The motor turned out to be very thermally loaded, which is largely facilitated by the installation of an Eaton drive supercharger with two intercoolers in the collapse of the block. The consequence of overheating, as a rule, are seizures in the cylinders. The motor is most demanding on the state of the cooling system, in which the weak point is the thermostat, which often fails after 80,000 km. When replacing, experts advise installing a lower temperature one. 3.2 FSI. Gasoline aspirated 3.2 on pre-styling Americans is the least problematic of gasoline engines. The average resource before overhaul is usually about 300,000 kilometers, but the timing drive does not reach this run. A chain replacement is usually required after 180 to 220,000 kilometer 2.0 TDI. The 2-liter turbo diesel is generally the most successful, although it is demanding on fuel quality. Every 80 to 100,000 km, it is necessary to change not only the timing belt, but the water pump driven by it in order to last without a leak until the next belt update. Injectors rarely fail before 100 to 150,000 km, but their seals may need to be replaced. The turbocharger, as a rule, keeps at least 250,000. After 100,000 kilometers, under adverse operating conditions, the DPF particulate filter may become clogged. 3.0 TDI. In the diesel 3.0 TDI, the timing chain drive can cause problems after 140,000 km, the upper chain tensioners wear out. In pre-styling copies of the first 2 years of production, after 80,000 km, the actuator of the dampers for changing the length of the intake manifold wears out. Subsequently modified ones withstand 150,000 km, and in just 100 to 120,000 km, the high-pressure fuel pump can wear out. Filling the fuel system with shavings, later a modernized unit was used. Stronach. Initially designed for all-wheel drive, the 7-speed Stronach DL501 7Q robot with wet clutches, an integrated torsion center differential, and a front gear drive shaft without card-end joints is not inferior to manual transmissions in mechanical reliability. But the executive part, including mechatronics, sensors, and solenoids on pre-styling copies older than 2011, often failed after only 60,000 km, and by 150,000 repairs were already the rule. In addition to clutches, the mechatronics unit itself was often subject to replacement. In 2011, the control part of the preselective underwent a significant revision, and the box began to withstand 200 to 220,000 km before repair. Subject to renewal every 60,000 kilometers of both types of oil, the usual transmission for mechanical boxes in the gear part, and a special fluid in the executive part. AKP6. On versions with a 3.2 engine, a 6-speed Tiptronic AL651-6Q automatic machine aka ZF6HP with an oil change every 60,000 kilometers usually lasts 220 to 250,000 before repair. After 100 to 120,000 km, leaks in the seal of the wiring harness, pump, or deformed plastic pan are possible. AKP8. The 8-speed automatic AL551-8Q, which appeared since 2010, is the most successful automatic transmission on the Audi Q5. Although the seals of the pan or electrical wiring can also leak from it, but when the oil is updated at the same frequency of 60,000 kilometers, the unit is able to work out 250 to 300,000. Thoroughly, up to 2 times, the resource can be reduced by frequent starts with the pedal in the floor. In such modes, the clutches wear out quickly, and there where products interfere with the operation of the hydraulic part. MCP. The 6-speed manual, rarely found in 4-cylinder diesel and petrol versions, is reliable on its own. But after 140 to 160,000 km, it may be necessary to replace not only the clutch, but also the expensive dual-mass flywheel. The quality of interior finishing is one of the best in the class. The wear of the leather upholstery of the seats and the steering wheel braid is a sign of a mileage of more than 200,000 kilometers. The transparent dashboard screen is made of soft plastic and scratches easily. You need to wipe it as delicately as possible. Squeaks and extraneous sounds in the cabin are rare, with the exception of versions with a panoramic roof, which can tap on bumps with age. Also, the hatch is capable of not only leaking, there are cases of its cracking in frost. In pre-styling machines, the drainage system is often clogged and moisture can accumulate in the porous material under the sealing lining. The electrics of the Audi Q5 are quite complex and can be frustrating with whims. Many problems require flashing various blocks. There are failures of the rear view camera, electric climate control, electromechanical parking brake, center monitor backlight, touch sensors in the doors for versions with a keyless entry system. In this case, you will have to buy a handle assembly. The windshield washer fluid level and tire pressure control systems are buggy. After 100 to 120,000 km, the heating and electric drives of the seats, the heater motor, and the ABS system sensors often stop working. Any version of the Audi Q5 crossover may require significant maintenance costs, and especially pre-styling cars older than 2012 with a 2.0 TFSI petrol turbo engine and a robot. The payment for the premium and comfort of the first buyer falls on the shoulders of the second and subsequent owners. If you know of other breakdowns or malfunctions, then tell us about it in the comments. Your review can help others when choosing a used car.